And Renee and I are going to present. Renee's, if it's okay, Renee, for me to share, is some sick kiddos at home, and so she might or might not be with us tonight. So we have some other coworkers on the line. Emily Ross is here. I see Sarah Young is here, and Madison. And so anytime you all have something to share, lean in. And of course, anybody that's on the call, if you have something that you think will be helpful to other folks, feel free to chime in. We really, when we were thinking about how to, this conversation can go in, 1,000 different directions, right? Based on the age of the child and, who the child is and how they respond to different things and families. There are lots of ways that we could direct this conversation. So I have some different resources that I'll pull up and share my screen on throughout our conversation. And we've prepared some questions to get us started. And we hope that you'll lean in and, share like something you've learned or like a question that you have that you might want to ask from the group. So this could be the most beneficial for you. Because all of us, every person in this building could be on this call because we all have things that we're constantly learning and mistakes that we're constantly making when we parent or grandparent. And so, it is for all of us for sure. Michael or Renee, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here this evening. I am studio support coordinator, so I help several of the studios inside the school and do various things. And I have 4 children, 2 14-year-olds, a 17-year-old, and an 18-year-old.
And so we'll be bringing some of these experiences too. Both of our daughters, Glenn and I, graduated from the school. So they're adults now. 31 and 27. And I don't even know if that's right. It's right around there. And then we have 4 grandchildren, 3 of which are at the school, 5-year-old twins, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Renee?
Hi, I started at Community Montessori in 0 to 3 at the nursery. I've since moved to 3 to 6. I have, I have 3 biological children. One has graduated from Community Montessori. One is in the teens program, and then I have one in the, what is it called? 9 to 12? I don't know.
Yep.
And then I also have a little one at the nursery right now. We are a foster family and like a resource family. So we have lots of children in our home that come from hard places. So I feel like I can relate to like a lot of different scenarios that, that can come up, and try to build consistency in our home with like a revolving door sometimes. So I totally understand and get, I've probably had like a lot of these things happen.
Yeah,
to me.
right.
So I'm excited to be here.
And her oldest actually works in the nursery now. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So does anyone have anything they'd like to get us started with? I mean, our conversation tonight is about how to support our child or teen at home. And like I said, there's no right or wrong to this, but we'd love to see if anyone else would like to start off first. Anybody want to share something they're working on right now, or something they've just got to a better place that might help other people?
I'll speak up.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm a grandparent. I do not parent my grandchildren. Their parents are in the picture, but I see them often enough and have them in my home often enough that this kind of content is really interesting and beneficial to me in supporting. One of my grandchildren has just been at Community Montessori for since the beginning of this year, this school year. And so I have witnessed changes in her behavior in my home without me doing anything differently. And it's beautiful to see. And so I'm hoping to learn a lot
That's
more
a great,
from
Yeah.
all of you tonight. So how I can support that more, to see that independence and self-reliance and responsibility and kindness. And
Great.
those are things I'm seeing and manifesting from this approach. So kudos, and I'm in great appreciation of the school, and I am looking forward to learning even more about it. So
Awesome.
thank you for doing
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, those are such great points. And, sometimes we forget about all the things that we do. I'm making my screen bigger, but that's not working for this. So I'll probably have to go over here. Sorry. Let's see if I make this a little bigger. Like 19 ways to do the same thing. So can you see that well enough? Yeah. And I'll put the links to these in the chat in just a minute too. But some of the things you talked about, like, we forget how different we are here sometimes, and these are some of the ways that we talk with young people, and they're all for a really important purpose. So instead of saying like, stop that, we suggest an alternative behavior, like if they, keep picking at their nose, we would say, do you want to use a tissue to go into your nose to help with that, and that way your hands stay clean and we don't get any viruses inside of our body and so forth. No hitting, please keep your hands to your own body, and so we try to say things in a very positive way. And you can look at each one of these and kind of get the gist of why we have these different ways of talking. And then even on the back, we've got some ideas for some older children or teens. I can't agree with this answer. Have you checked your work yet? Is this your best work? Instead of like, well, that's not right. Did you, so just trying to help them to have ways of ownership. One of the questions I came up with that I thought might be of interest, and if it's okay, if one of us shares a question, if you can just raise your hand, either physically or your digital hand, and let us know if this is a question that might be helpful to you, okay? So the question I wrote down was, my child team will only help out around the house if I give them some kind of reward. How can I change that? Was that anything that might be helpful to folks? Okay, if you're raising your digital hand, okay, that's helpful. Great, thank you. All right, that helps. I don't want to waste our time. So, and I think talking in this way is one way that we do this, because it's not about us, it's about them. And so we're really cautious about not being the one that has to always control everything. And that doesn't mean that we don't set boundaries. But when you find that your child is asking for something in return for helping, if we reflect, there's probably something that has led to that. We get exhausted and we're like, fine, we'll get ice cream tomorrow if you just clean up your room, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, we're going to get ice cream if I clean up my room. And you're like, I started this, didn't I? Right. And so, I'm a big proponent of family meetings. We started that when our children were little, and everyone has a voice to family meeting. I think sometimes when I've shared this with people, like, oh no, we've had family meetings. I'm like, well, tell me about it. And they're like, well, I just sat everyone down and told them what the rules were. Well, that may be a family meeting, but we're suggesting something a little bit different, right? Where we create, what each person needs together. And that doesn't mean that we always have to agree with each other. But, like, I might come to the family meeting and say, I'm struggling with the milk being gone, and we've had 2 gallons and no one wrote it on the board. And so I'm wondering how we can all, be more conscious. It may have been me. I don't even know how the milk ran out, but I'm wondering if anyone has any ideas for that. And the 4-year-old might say, I think if we have we've emptied the first carton, we just put it on the counter so that, we make sure that it gets put on the list. And we're like, oh, that's probably a good idea. Let's try that for a while, right? Like, even if I don't feel 100%, like, I don't want that carton on the counter, like, it gives that young person some ownership in what they think can happen. So, and, we're about the intrinsic part. I know extrinsic rewards give quicker responses, but when we're after the quicker response, you're not going to find the intrinsic part, right? And so they're going to be focused more on the extrinsic part. So, they're going to want the quick fix or the quick something. Well, if I do that for you, are you going to do this for me? Oh my gosh. And that sometimes hits a trigger for us as parents, right? They were like, what? Are you kidding me? Do you know all the things I've done for you, right? And we could go on for hours. I do your laundry. I do this. Well, as soon as children are walking, they can do all of those things. They can put their laundry either in a basket, they can put it in the washing machine. You can teach them how to do the laundry. My grandchildren, since the time they were 3, were loading things. They were turning on the buttons. They were helping to fold the clothes. Like, when we start with those things when they're young, it's easier for them to know that it's just part of being a member of the community. This is our community, as our family. Anyone want to add to that or have other things to say? There's some more hands up. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. And if you don't, you can go ahead and put it down now. Emily, did you have something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm walking around, but I actually just wanted to say, even at the teens level, how important what you just said is to think about the consistency. If we're talking about consistency about being at school too, and Karen, what you just shared, at school we are asking them to do work, chore work, right? Like cleaning up after themselves and cleaning up after their lunch and cleaning up after the end of the day all the time. Without extrinsic things. So even just to be consistent with what we're doing at school, it's really important to remember that we're asking them to do that. So you asking them to do that is consistent with what we're doing too. So I think that clear, we just clean up because we use this or whatever it is really important and consistent with what we do at school. So I think if that's helpful to hear, that you don't have to have a reward attached to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Emily. Sarah, did you want to add anything? She might have just had her hand up from earlier. Dulce? Go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say, how does something like what the woman who was just speaking, I'm sorry.
Emily? Yeah, you're fine. Emily. Mm-hmm.
What if you say, well, we're all a family, and if everybody pitches in, no one person has to carry the whole load, and we're all, responsible for getting all of these things done. And so as a part of this family, you need, or we need you to do your part. So how would that come across, and would you reword that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Did you want to take that, Renee?
Well, I was just going to say that whatever I'm going to say, sometimes they're just my personal things that kind of have worked here or haven't worked here, or something that we're working towards. And I just want to circle back something that Barbara said as when she was talking about her young grandchildren doing it. I feel like if we kind of start then, I recently read somewhere that they don't really know at that age that they're chores. They just know that they're helping you. They're at that moment, they're like, oh, I'm helping you do, this thing. And I feel like that can be carried on. Also, they do lose it, believe me. They forget that they used to love helping do the laundry.
Each time they hit a plane of development.
Exactly. We have things that they, we call it things that they do not get paid for because it is a part of being a family. Putting away your clothes, doing the dishes, things like that are things that keep our household running. And they don't get paid for those things. And taking care of the animals. They wanted them, they love them, they take care of them. Some other things they do get paid for are kind of going a little bit extra, sometimes
cutting the grass.
Yes, I haven't had many take that offer. I like doing that, so I don't really give that.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
like,
All right. Fair enough.
like washing the baseboards, like that's something I don't love doing, but they'll do it because they're like, oh, I want to get this, reward, I guess, for this. But I think that it's perfectly fine to say, like, hey, this is what we're doing to be, all of us to be a functional community, like a family. Like, I think that what you said, Karen, was fine. Like, very honest to the point is, I think, kind of the best. And just saying it gently, gently
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah. I probably, Karen, would not use the word you, and I would use we instead, because each time we say you, it feels like now they have to do something. So I think even when we're talking as a class, we don't say like I messages unless there's a reason for us to do that. But otherwise, we would say like, well, our community or we, we would use those words because that's what we really mean. Yeah. Sarah, did you have something? Thought she re-raised her hand, but maybe she didn't. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, you really have to know your child and children. I think it's very important that all of your children help and support around the house. In my family, I know that a couple of my children are very compliant and they will do exactly what I ask them to do. And I know a couple other that are going to give me some pushback. They may not finish the job. And so I try to cater to their needs as well. And so I can still make them accountable for finishing, but yet not drain them out and build some consistency with them. So we'll talk at the dinner table. That I think is the most important thing that you can do with your family is try to eat several nights a week as a family. It has changed our family dynamics having 4 kiddos, that we are able to have consistent conversations. It has stopped with the bickering back and forth and been a catalyst for us to move forward and help each other. And I have found more and more at the dinner table and having conversations, the more and more that they're willing to help one another and the more that they've grown together. We talk about our challenges and we talk about our successes, and those are able to lead to other things in our lives. So I like to say at the dinner table, I really need support outside today with doing X, Y, and Z. Can anybody help me? And 9 times out of 10, somebody will step up to do that. And that community has really, really been awesome in our family of just building self-esteem as well as help and support for one another. So I encourage you, if there's anything that you can do, eat at home as a family and together.
Well, thanks, Michael. Madison, did you want to share something?
Hi, yes, I teach at the 6 to 9 level at the school, and I don't have any children. But another piece of what we'll say in the studio that seems to, make sense for them is that we talk about the purpose of community, and that, the benefits of that is that you can lean on each other's strengths and abilities. So, if I'm the adult, so I'm needing to drive us to the grocery store, but I think what you could do is you can write the list for us, so the whole point of a community is that you can lean on each other and not one person has to do everything. And so that's another point that we'll say in the studio that seems to help.
That's great. Thanks, Madison. That's helpful. Has anyone else thought of a question yet? Or a comment or something that might be helpful? Michael, do you have one that you want to share?
I'd want to add a story or I have a scenario. I'd go either way.
Whichever way you want to go.
I'll go this route. How about I'll go to story time? Does anybody have any gamers in their family?
Like video gamers?
Video gamers. I'm sure hands will go up like crazy. Well,
okay.
One of my children, I will not share which one, but one of my children about 7-8 years ago loved Fortnite. They love the strategy, like they love just the part of Fortnite, and it's probably one of the most popular games. Not saying it's always appropriate, but it was a very popular game, and you could get V-Bucks, and so you pay so much money for some V-Bucks, and those V-Bucks in return will end up buying you different things like skins and levels and different things like that. And so I think you probably know where this is going. I look at my debit account and I notice that there's money missing. And I look at it again and I start adding up some stuff and I realize that $847.08 was taken out of the account because my child had overly ordered a V-Bucks, didn't realize that my account was tied to his Fortnite account apparently. And so, I fell short and I got really angry with him. I'm sure I was not kind. I remember saying, this was right around November. I remember saying, you're probably not going to get any Christmas and your siblings aren't probably either. I am sure that I probably said hateful things. I was angry. I was mad at him. And then I went to take a break and I walked around the neighborhood and I realized it's money. This is not a big deal. This is a learning experience. What do we need to do? And so I went back and I sat down with him, and it probably was one moment that changed our lives together. We sat down and had a beautiful conversation, and he said, Dad, I really didn't mean, I thought in my heart, I thought that I had found a glitch in the system. And that's why I kept buying them, because I could keep doing it and it never asked for any information. It was just adding. And he goes, I had no idea. And so I said, but it's almost $850. We've got to find somewhere. And so we sat down and made a plan and said, I'll do X, Y, and Z each night, as well as this is what I'm going to do for the family. I'm also going to try to write to your bank and try to see what will happen. We made it kind of into a learning experience. And at that time we were building a deck, and he helped me out so much with that. And that was part of kind of the payoff, but he knew that he fell short and he knew he had to find a way to make it right. And we were able to come up with a plan. We wrote it down together, and the plan we followed. And each time that we talked, we reverted back to the plan. These were the things that you said that you were going to do. And he got to the point where he said, Dad, I'm about $200 off. My birthday's coming up December 12th. Can I just not have any birthday presents? And that made me wipe it clean, just because I knew that he had already worked off $600. And so it was an experience that I fell short on at the beginning, but at the end, it was a transformation in my relationship to him. So I just wanted to kind of share that you will fall short being consistent with your child, but at the same time, having love and compassion and being able to sit down and have deep conversation is something that's so meaningful.
And to let them know that we make mistakes too, like being humble with our kids is also really powerful. It's hard sometimes to apologize, especially when they're like, oh, you said so-and-so, you're like, oh, so that's it. But also just saying, I fell short. I could have done that better. And I'd like to hit a reset and start again. Let's see what we can do differently. And that's that. Yeah. Like Brian said, it's a fantastic story. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael, for sharing that and your vulnerability. I did have one quick question. When you came back, do you feel like he felt less defensive? Was your demeanor more of calm and let's talk about how we're going to solve this instead of just targeting what he did wrong? Do you think that you were able to convey that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I try to do with my kiddos, if I fall short, I let them know. Like, I got agitated, I got angry, and I am sorry. I do that all the time. If I feel like I jump or I jump to a conclusion or I get really frustrated with something, I'm the first they will know that, I'm very consistent and I can be very firm, but I can be extremely loving and I'm extremely forgiving. And it's something where I have found the more that you do that, the better the relationship is with your child. My youngest child isn't there yet, but my oldest child, we've had so many great conversations, and especially about consistency and being able to come up with resources on your own. Many times he will come up to me and say, Dad, my car broke down. I think it's going to be about $450. I have $350 saved. I'm going to need a loan of about $100. Do you think you can help me out and make a plan? And I try to really set my kids up with, you come up with the plan and then approach me. If you've fallen short with something or something happens, you make the plan, especially at the teen level. Obviously, this doesn't work for 12 and under, but at the teen level, having them come up with a plan and then coming to see you helps them in life choices down the road as well, that they're going to have to make, a few years down the road.
Thanks. Helpful.
Renee,
Barbara,
do you have any? Go ahead, Michael.
I do have a scenario.
Sure, go for it.
Here's the scenario, and it's a touchy scenario, but I think it is evident in our lives today. But let's say you are part of a blended family and your partner has a different approach to discipline and redirection. Maybe one parent is a little bit more authoritarian, while the other one's a little bit more nurturing. What can you do? What strategies can you use to make sure that you and your partner, or it could be your ex-partner, are on the same page when parenting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very real in our culture for sure. Anybody have anything that's worked or a comment about that? While you're thinking, I'll tell you a quick story. When I first started going to my Montessori training, and Glenn and I were starting a home daycare in our basement, and I would go up to class on Monday or a Saturday, and I would come home and I would say, okay, we have to change all of these things. This is what we're going to do now. And he'd be like, what do you mean we can't do this? What, And I don't know how we stayed married in that time period, because I was so excited, but I wasn't able to partner with him about it. I just wanted to tell him what we needed to do. And eventually we got to that place, but it was hard. It was a hard learning process for both of us, because, I just thought he would be like, oh, that sounds wonderful. And then we started the home daycare, and I was still going to school. And so I started it for a little bit, and I set it up, and, I worked with the kids with Glenn for the first, 3 weeks or whatever. And then I kind of turned it over to him. And again, I would come home, or I'd say like, so how did you do this? And how did you do that? And, we had to kind of work through and talk a lot about, what was important for both of us. And I had to also let him be at the place that he was, right? Like, I couldn't just change who he was. We had to start at his place, just like we do with our own children. And Sarah says, open communication between both is essential. My fiance and I have frequent discussions when things come up. He is more strict than I am. We are a blended family with 3 boys, ages 10, 12, and 14. Thank you, Sarah. It's helpful. And then Aaron said, I will say we are a blended family, and discussions discussions about why we choose to gentle parent and why we choose explaining versus authoritarianism worked for us. It was a learning process versus it's about me situation for all of us. Thank you. That's helpful. Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah Young.
I just want to add into this. I don't come from a blended family, but finding consistency. I come from a separated family. So my ex-husband and I divorced just about almost 2 years ago now, and the process of we've always been good communicators and great co-parents, but the issues we've had, just have gotten so intense over the last few years, and trying to find a really great, like a bridge, a gap in like bridging our gaps for our households. There's so many, we're both trying to find our own identity as individuals through this process. So we do things totally different in the house, and it's like we're almost making it a point to do things differently, because we don't want to, we don't want to associate ourselves with the other person anymore. And that can be very frustrating. And so I think the thing that has helped us a lot is, first of all, working in the Montessori environment has taught me a lot of really strong language to use in those situations where I feel frustrated with both my co-parent and my child. Hold on 1 second, Lennox. 1 second, please. And the other side of it is just remaining consistent with our practices. Like we've started to write out plans for how we will handle behaviors. We have a child who has autism, and when we're not consistent with that across the household, it really throws everything off, and the entire family unit gets affected. And so we're starting to find a groove. And I just want to say that those levels of communication are life changing when you start to really realize like it's just about building those bridges between home and school and other home, and making sure the children feel safe in every direction.
Thank you. That is so true. I'm sharing this 101 things parents can do to help children.
I am
as well.
Still listening, but I am also one ear in.
101 things parents can do to help children. And so I've put it in the chat too, which I think could be really helpful. I was noticing this Michael Olaf, I think that ended with the pandemic. Unfortunately, it was a great catalog. But, I think somebody, maybe Karen, spoke of independence. And I had this question that I wrote down, said, how can I help my child teen be more independent with their lunch? Is that anything that somebody else might find use in talking about? Okay, thank you. Yeah. And so, yeah, thanks, Sarah. And so, sometimes that becomes the adult's role, and maybe you've heard us say, let your child make their own lunch. And you might be like, are you kidding me? It's all I can do to help them make sure they're dressing themselves and brushing their teeth and brushing their hair. Like, I cannot add another thing to that, but developmentally, the 3-year-old can take the, containers out of their lunchbox and put them in the dishwasher, right? So you could just find the one thing that you can do to help them to do that. I remember we got both of our daughters IDs, like a driver's license, but it's just an ID, when they were about 8 years old. And once you have an ID, you can also get a credit card. And so we got them each their own credit cards. They started making, their own credit when they were 8. And it was shared. I shared one with my older daughter, and Glenn shared one with the younger daughter. And so we would give them an amount of money to go to the grocery each week to buy the groceries. And we would say things like, you have to have at least 2 vegetables, or you need to have, you can only buy 1 Lunchable. One of our children really love Lunchables a week or whatever. And so, they got to decide, like, do I want to buy this prepackaged food, which is going to take most of my money for the week, or do I want to buy a fresh vegetable? And so, and by the time both of them were 18, 19, 20, they had this great credit score, number one, and they knew what things cost. They had that idea too. So thinking about what you can do, the goal is not to make your life more stressful. It's to help them in the long run, but just the little steps of that. But this article, if you opened it up from the chat, it gives you lots of other ideas about other things that you might want to lean into. Anybody have something to share? Renee, did you want to share anything?
I have to walk away for just a moment.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sure. Go ahead, Sarah.
For me, I guess it's kind of a control thing. It's hard to step back and allow your child to make their own lunch, and you kind of don't want them to forget something. So I'm not sure how to step back, allow them to do it, and learn from it if they were to forget to put something in there.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you don't want to go in and say, okay, you can't have that, you can't have that, and we do all the time is we realize we did not prepare the environment accurately. And then like for an art activity, and then all of a sudden there's paint all over the floor, like same kind of thing. So, what you could do, some families do, is set up, and I think Sarah Etheridge joined the call, and maybe she wants to speak to this. But they would have a container in the refrigerator with things cut up that they could add to their lunch. So there was choices they could choose from, but all of the choices are things that you would be okay with them having in their lunch. And so instead of just giving them free reign to put anything in there, you're giving them pieces of things. And if they're like, I want, pretzel bites, and you're like, okay, well, let's write that on the board when we go to the grocery next. Let's see how much it costs to buy them, or maybe we could get a recipe and try to make them, Does that make sense, Sarah? Any follow up to that?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Something that we did as a family when my kiddos were younger is on Sunday night, preparing for the week is always a time where you're trying to kind of de-escalate because you're going to get ready to end up going into a strong week. We would do our lunches on Sunday night for the entire week. So I could monitor that. What went in their lunchbox, they would pull out baggies and they would put their lunch in for the entire week, whether that was from the grocery store or something that they made. We pre-made a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so they would put them in that. And so they knew the next morning they had a note on their backpack that said, don't forget lunch. And so they would have that. They would go over to that before going out the door, and they would remember to grab their lunch. I never had to say, grab your lunch. Did you grab your lunch? They would automatically do that. So that was something we did.
Yeah. It's a great idea. And it's okay if they get all the way down to the car and have to come back up, or if the note's on the bottom, down by the garage, it's just part of the process. I think too. Go ahead. Go ahead, Renee, was that you? No? Couldn't tell who was talking.
Yeah, I think Renee froze. She may have lost her.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, she's frozen. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it, as parents, sometimes we found out how to be really efficient, right? Adults in our world have learned how to feel really efficient, and sometimes going by the same speed of our child is also beautiful. And knowing that that I'm thinking of Emily Ross's one of her children, but like I'm guessing that it could take a long time for them to put all of their food into the lunchbox. So like Michael's idea, I'd be setting them up more for success if we did it the night before or before we read our books or whatever, right? So it doesn't make me stressed out because I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to leave, we're going to be late, So you'll hear us at the school talk a lot about prepared environments. And so we're trying to set them up for success. We're not trying to, make all the shortcuts to make it easy. We're just trying to think about developmentally, what do they need? What does this child, what maybe accommodation do they need? And put that in place first. So then you can kind of step back. Go ahead, Brian.
This is the perfect example, to talk about because
great.
Letting my son make his own lunch, it was very difficult for me to turn loose of that because I'm very efficient at making lunches in the morning. And I had a whole system, in between making coffee for my wife and I and preparing, I had a whole system down. But, that was the start of, I think, 2 school years ago, maybe. We just decided we were going to go for it and let him start making his own lunch. And I was shocked at what a difference that made because he took so much ownership of that process that not only did he just get it done every morning, he actually started getting up early to make sure he had enough time for it. And he and it's like, just like someone said earlier, like we just had things that were appropriate for a healthy lunch, and we would prepare some of those things the day ahead, and there were just a selection of things in the refrigerator that he could use to make his own lunch, and he took ownership above that immediately, and I was very proud of him. So yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that's
I know it's
cool.
hard to turn loose of that, but it's
Uh-huh.
good.
Yeah. Good for you. That's a good story. So Renee was saying, I was just going to add to what Michael was saying. We do meal prepping Sunday night, pack lunches each night. Each child has a container that has 3 compartments, 1 veggie, 1 fruit, 1 protein. Yeah. And sometimes families will say, like, that was so beautiful until they turned 13 or 15. And then they didn't want to bring anything anymore, or, they only wanted to bring a bag of chips, or, like, it became really hard. And, sometimes we have to talk about the root of that instead of just trying to fix the problem. Sometimes it's body image things. Sometimes kids become really self-conscious about eating in front of others. And so, like, well, just eat a breakfast and then you'll eat kind of an late lunch or an early dinner when you get home. How about you just pack some peanuts, that you can have, or a cheese stick or something. But helping them to have something, just in case they get really hungry, in this plan that they want to make, can be really helpful. This young person that I'm working with right now is in that same boat, and we've made a plan that each day they don't bring lunch. They just send an email home to family, like, remind me this is my plan, to bring something. It could be just an apple, just bring something, because their body does get really low if they don't have anything. And so it was something we started to observe, and it's still a process. We're still sending emails home, but trying to find the root of that can be really important too. Renee's back. Yay. Renee, did you have any questions you wanted to share? Did you have a chance to think about any?
I guess if there's anyone who has any questions about, like, younger children too, like, I can, if anyone has that, they can, share. But if they don't, I mean, I have some that kind of work for, like, multiple situations. But if anyone has anything particular that they want to.
Go ahead, Darren. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm Amy.
Hi, Amy. I wasn't sure if you were Darren. I couldn't see your face very well. Thank you.
I have a kiddo with eating aversions. I have tried everything to get him to try different foods. I've tried to put things in meatballs, and he can spot a vegetable a mile away, no matter how pureed it is. So, any suggestions on maybe breaking through those food aversions would be helpful?
I live that right now with our good. So it's a little bit different because there's actually something like oral. So I don't know if that's the case for your child, but it does take a little bit to find that out. So that's like more of like the speech and language like thing. But so I always used to think, like, to hide it also, but is it like a texture thing? Do you know if it's like just certain foods?
It's definitely textural. Chicken nuggets are okay. Sometimes meatballs are okay. They love tuna fish. That's one of the healthy things that I can get them to eat, but then there's mercury, so I'm like, So it's definitely a textural thing. I have noticed he will try different things in his studio, but not at home. Like, he'll eat cucumbers there, which is fabulous. I'm fine with it. I don't care where he eats them, but at home, he's like, oh, I don't like those here. So, definitely textural. I don't know where to go with it, because I continue to, and I try to give him choices. Like, you can pick a carrot, or you can pick a cucumber, so I try to give positive choices, but I typically find the carrot hidden somewhere in the house. So
Is it also just with vegetables, or is it with fruit also?
it's chips they'll eat, any protein. Like I've never been able to get him to eat anything but meatballs and a hamburger. Chicken, he will not eat at all. So I've tried it as many ways as I can think to eat it. So
I don't know if this for this, but one of my kiddos is very heavily into soccer, and he plays about five nights a week, and he eats like a bird, and he just really struggles. He's skinny, and so what I've done to supplement that is I try to help him plan out the food, but I always give him a nutritional shake that I ask him to take after he eats everything that he can, because usually kids will down shakes in a heartbeat. You just have to find the right shakes.
he'll do that for sure. He loves Ensures. It's just, I'm like, how do I get him to eat these things? So
there's a page. I know she has a website. It's called Kids Eat in Color. She has a lot of helpful. I wouldn't say tricks. Like they're just tips. And like she compares a lot of like vegetables to fruit, and how sometimes like they even have the same vitamins in them. So if there is something that orange that he might like, like he may not eat orange peppers, but he'll eat an orange. And like sometimes those things like have the same nutritional content and even like vitamins. But also if it's a textural thing, and this is still up in the air for me, but I'm going to offer it to you. Maybe it'll work. But ours is like the actual touching of the food. So we've gotten like these little, they're like cute little animal toothpicks. So he doesn't actually have to like touch them, but he can still like pick them up. And also what you're doing with just exposure is like so great. Like just being like exposing that child over and over and over to something is fantastic. Like they're still seeing that, they're associating what it is. And I heard that you said that they were eating them in the studio, which is really like, I love that because they're getting it somewhere. And maybe, I don't know if you've had them try to prepare it at home, like do like the, the peeling and the cutting and stuff like that. But sometimes if you involve them in the preparation, they might want to, be more likely to like eat it and try it. But there are some things, and she has really good helpful tips on there. It's called Kids Eat in Color.
Okay, I'll try that. He's prepared it. He's, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We have to grow through. So.
And Sarah put in the link that she does smoothies with spinach and things. So
I tried that.
Yeah.
It was slightly green, and he was like, "Oh, this is not happening."
Yeah. Too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. Yeah, those are great ideas, Renee. And one of my grandchildren will only eat eggs at school. And I was talking to her about it today, and I said, why don't you eat eggs at home? And she said, I don't like eggs at home. I said, yeah, but I'm just curious why. And she said, we have this really neat, it almost looks like a waffle maker, and it bubbles up that egg and makes it so good. And I said, sounds like you need to ask for one of those for your birthday, And so anyway, it is hard to find the things, and you see the incongruencies sometimes, and we have to try to blend those. Thank you for that.
I'll even tell you this, that we have chickens and so we have fresh eggs, and one of our children will not eat those. She's like, I want them from the store. And we're like, but these are like straight from the source. So right. Yeah, they can be tricky.
Yeah. Michael, do you have another question or comment or story?
What about siblings? What if you have you notice your children seem to be calling each other names and yelling at each other a lot. How do you support them working through their frustrations with one another so that it puts some more harmony in your house? I was kind of thinking about that one. I've been guilty of doing like the together shirt. I don't know if anybody knows what the together shirt is, but I did that a long, long time ago where I put the two kids that were having frustration moments into my huge, big shirt and they had to be there together. That is not the way that we would ever do that. But I tried it a long time ago. Didn't work. But does anybody have any strategies of supporting that situation?
Great question. I want to hear the strategies. Thank you.
Sarah, do you have something to add?
I have 3 boys, of which they seem to argue and fight a lot, and we have what's called a 5-minute cool-off period. If they start to get into it with their brother, they are to walk away, say nothing else, go take 5 minutes in their rooms, basement, outside, wherever they can find a place. And when they feel like they have come to feeling better, then they will come back and we will have a discussion about what happened, why they felt the way they did, and kind of talk about things.
I really like that. But what if you're in the car and you're driving for, 30 minutes, and then it's you as an adult telling them both to be quiet and stop, and they're not.
I have pulled over the car before, and we have had conversation right there in the car about what's going on. And I don't move until things are calm again. I've told them that it's distracting as trying to drive. It's dangerous to drive while they're fighting in the back seat, and I won't move until things are calm again.
And sometimes just by sharing things ahead of time, like owning what feels too much for you can help them to know. And so it's not a surprise. So Sarah, you may do that with them, right? Like, I can't drive like that, like if that happens in the future, we're just going to have to pull over until everyone's calm again. I like to try, if I'm in the car with my grandchildren and, someone says they want to hear this song and someone says they want to hear this song, and all of a sudden they start ensuing, trying to talk over each other. And I said, well, we'll turn the music down until we've made a decision. But I think Jude wants to hear more about what your opinion is, why don't you talk to him? And so just trying to help them to know that they have to kind of talk to each other instead of share. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, I'm going to digress a minute and then I'll come back, is being at the nursery, the community nursery for 0 to 3-year-olds, and watching these children, this one child kept running into these seats that another child was sitting on. And this 2-year-old said, I do not want you to touch my body. And this child kind of looked at her, like, does she mean it? Like, what's going to happen if I do? And then a few minutes later, they did it again. And the child looked a little bit stronger and said, I do not want you to touch my body. And the child kind of looked at them, like they're trying to feel each other out, And a few minutes later, they did it again. And not one time during this situation did they say, Renee or Michael or, like, there's so-and-so, blah, 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 right? And so when our children say those words, then we've probably been too involved in the solution. If we give them time and space and we help to prepare the environment, like, you're talking to me, but your brother is right there and you're upset with him. And he probably wants to hear more about that. But right now your voice is really high and he's saying it's too loud. And so I'm wondering if you're hearing him, And so we're helping them to work through it instead of going in and managing it. And it was beautiful. The child did kind of like, you could see their wheels working, like, I wonder what will happen if I do it one more time. They never did it the one more time, but I think that other child would have just been very firm, and it would have eventually stopped. And gosh, you're teaching 2 really important skills, right? You're teaching that stop means stop to one, and you're helping the other child to know that sometimes when I self-advocate, I'm not going to get what I want, and I have to keep persevering, And wow, we all know adults that don't do either one of those things well, right? And seeing a 2-year-old be able to do that, now when they hit the next plane of development, it might start over again, but they still have those memories, right? Like they still have those successes. And so the more we can help them to look at one another and try to work through the situation. And oftentimes I've found that they come up with better solutions than I do. But my role is just to help them, kind of whisper to them, I don't know if you realize, but he's saying you're hurting his ears, and take a second, take a breath so that you can talk in your regular voice and maybe you could both hear each other, and then I pull back away again, right? I'm just kind of present there. Anyone else have thoughts or comments or? I wrote down this question, and this can be hard. And usually this happens at age, 5 or 6, when children learn to lie. And my question was, why does my child or teen not tell the truth? Anyone have that issue that they've worked on before? Oh, we all have truth takers. No, I'm just kidding. And thanks. Yeah. And it doesn't mean they're bad. Oftentimes, when the first time your child ever tells a lie, you could say, ta-da, their cognitive abilities are strong. We could celebrate that they're able to manipulate that information in their head. So the first thing we could do is celebrate that, not really out loud to them, but internally, right? Or with our partner later on or something. Because oftentimes we'll take it personally, like, what have I done wrong that they're now lying? But it really is a developmental component of that. And then the second thing we do is, I'm hearing you say that you did not leave that apple on the table. But I saw you sitting at the table eating an apple, and then I just pause. I will not be angry at you or mad, and you are not in trouble, but we do need to kind of solve this because I want to be able to trust what you say. And then I hold, and I might get busy, like looking like I'm making dinner or whatever, and I just stay nearby. And maybe they're not ready to have that conversation now. And maybe I give them an out, like, I'm finished talking about this right now, but we'll probably talk about it some other time. Right. And so I'm leaving that open. And, oftentimes we do that, I could always tell, when we always want to try to have that conversation with our child on our terms, but it has to be on their terms. When you're watching your teen and they're really stressed out, they're not going to probably be vulnerable with you because they're too angry. And so you can watch their shoulders. Their shoulders are really important part. The shoulders go down when they're calmer. They'll usually be more up when they're upset. And so once you see their shoulders are down, their demeanor's a little bit more calm, they're laughing a little bit, and maybe we're sitting in the bed and, I was thinking about that apple later on tonight, and I'm wondering if you're worried about being wrong, or you think that I might think you're not good. And I just hold, and they might offer something, they may not, but eventually they probably will, and there's no time limit to have that conversation. And, in our family, we work really hard to tell the truth. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect. And if you were feeling a feeling, I'd love to hear it sometime if you're open to telling me, because, that I think that will help us to know each other better. And, but we'll move on from that for now, and someday they might just say, I'm sorry, I left that apple there. And now it's organic and it's intrinsic, and it's not because they felt shamed into that. And at school and home, I think, many of us really want that to be our answer, that our children don't feel shame from that. Karen, did you want to add something?
Are you speaking to me, Karen?
Well, your hand was up, so I didn't know if it was up earlier from the question or if you had something to add.
Yeah. It was up earlier from
no
the
worries.
question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you
for
recognizing.
Sure.
Yeah. So do we have a hard stop at 6:30 or?
I mean, when people need to leave, they can. I think we could go on for a couple more minutes and see what conversations people have or comments or thoughts. Sure. Thanks for coming. Go ahead, Karen.
I have a question. This is around an issue of teeth brushing. So, personal hygiene, taking care of their own hygiene. And it is often, my grandchild sets it up as, or I think I'll say it's time to brush teeth and put on pajamas. And then I'm either, I don't want to brush my teeth tonight, or I'm not going to brush my teeth, which automatically sets it up as a power battle. And then comes in with a little manipulation. I'll do it tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow morning, it doesn't happen on its own. And I'm like, okay, we've got to get out the door. And so anyway, I'm thinking things as you're talking, but there are things like that are, and I've said things like, you've had some sugar tonight. I'm a grandparent. I gave you ice cream or cookies or whatever, and a lot of sugar on your teeth. And I explain that's not good for, 8 hours. And, you need to take care of your teeth. We all need to take care of our teeth. And none of that helps. And it almost becomes like this issue that my grandchild wants to be in control of. And of course, I don't have her every night or anything. So it's kind of
right.
Okay. If I miss it, if she misses it tonight, hopefully her parents are working that out. But it still is kind of like,
Right.
Anyway, thoughts,
Yep.
suggestions.
Renee, did you want to go? Go ahead.
I have a few. I like to do like a countdown. Like, I feel like this works like a lot. Like, you have 10 minutes before I ask you to brush your teeth. You have 8 minutes, and then I'm going to ask you to brush your teeth. So it's not like actually like being sprung like on them at all. So, and then I'll go, go all the way down, keep counting down. I think like what you're doing about explaining that, the health benefits of it, but also like a true like story about it. Like, if you've ever had a cavity, be like, this is a true story about when I had a cavity. And it might not be because you weren't brushing your teeth, but it hurt, or you had to do this thing about it. So I think that is, like, you can share that with them. But like, if there's a time and you're saying like at the end of 10 minutes, you're going to brush your teeth, like just have them be accountable for it. Like, we agreed at 10 minutes and it's 10 minutes now. So, I don't know how old they are. Sometimes like I've had little ones where I'll say, well, you can start and then I can help you finish, or I can start and then you can finish. And sometimes this has worked also is, let's brush our teeth together. That is something I've tried also. But if it's a routine, like, let's say right before bed, this is what you're going to do. And there's just no question about it. Like, it is a part of the routine. Like, this is what we do next. Like, we eat dinner, you play, then you brush your teeth, you get your pajamas, and then we go to bed. Like, it just becomes a part of that consistent routine. Also, something else that if it becomes really hard, like even like a chart, like this, we eat dinner, we get play, we brush our teeth, and then we read a book and we go to bed. So that way, again, there's no, I guess like there's no guesswork in what they're doing. Like, they already know it is a plan. I like to use that a lot. Like, this is our plan, right? Or what's your plan? Like, let's make a plan. I use that a lot.
Wow. That might work because she is a little older, and also she's a different personality. With her two other siblings, everything you said worked seamlessly. It's just this one.
We all have that one.
Like this power battle about her teeth, And then I have to admit, my own human, pride is that, hey, I got the other two to brush their teeth and I can't get this one too. So, and I feel that coming up in me, like, I've got to get, and she's 10. So, we're
Mm.
past the point of making it a routine, and we're past the point of even counting down. I've even asked her, does counting down help you? Or would you rather I not count down and just tell you 10 minutes and then tell you when it's up? And she'll give me one answer or the other, but it still doesn't like work. Like I said, I am a grandparent, and I do have the ability to just say it's not totally my challenge. And so some things as a grandparent, I just need to let go of, because if she's feeling with me like she wants or needs to have this power battle, maybe I just need to let go of that for the sake of the relationship. I don't know. I'm just throwing out like ideas.
Yeah, and I think if that is the only place that happens, and you're just saying we're just not gonna brush our teeth here. I've talked to your family; they're fine with it. We're just not gonna brush our teeth here, and you're gonna brush it at home. But if you see that happening in like 2 or 3 or 4 other places, you're probably gonna have to set the boundary each time, right?
That's good.
Yeah.
I'll ask, because I actually don't know. I feel pretty sure that it's happening at home at least semi-regularly, because we all know as parents, we get tired, and sometimes we just at bedtime we just let things go. But so that's a really good idea too, to just let that battle go with her. And she may even, if I do that, if I say to her, when you're here, you don't have to brush your teeth, she may even start doing it.
That's right. Yeah.
Because for some reason, she wants to be in control of that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think those are good observations. Sure.
Sometimes it might be even something as like simple as like letting them choose their like what type of toothpaste they want, or like a toothbrush. Sometimes the most simplest of things. I'm like, why did I think of that first?
Yeah. I don't mean to sound like condescending at all, but I've done all that.
Yeah, I'm sure. She's 10.
Toothpaste in my drawer, and different kinds of toothbrushes, and toothbrushes with, her favorite, character. And so I think it's just become something in her mind that she wants control of. I think it's just, and we all do. We all want to grow up having control. So yeah.
I've put a couple of resources in the chat if you'd like to look at them. One is about different books that are resources to support Montessori parenting in home. And the other I just added is the 3 R's commitment. And this is more for an older kiddo, 9 and up or 12 and up, depending on when you start to give them some more components of things like cell phones and so forth. Let's see here, teen family, teen parent. So this 3 R's process, is kind of like adherence to relationship, reciprocity, and respect. And, I think sometimes people don't think about the long term, like getting the car for a child, and they're like, then the child turns 17, 18, and like, I could go anywhere I want. I could come home anytime I want. And this kind of gives you a template of things about how you could start working with them to know that until you are financially independent, like this is the things that make a difference for that, or this is actually your family's phone and we're giving this to use only in this way, and you've agreed to do these things with that. So if you have an older kiddo, these are just some practices that might be helpful. Like one of them says, when practicing adulting, be clear that there is no magic number with age. Responsibility to the above and to the family continues until you are financially independent. And the teen agrees to, I understand that when I turn 18, there are no changes in this plan until I graduate from high school and I'm financially independent and living solely on my own, right? So if they know these things ahead of time, it doesn't become this, like, I can't borrow their car. That's their car. And I'm like, is it? Is it their car? I mean, how did you present it to them, right? So that might be something that any of our families that have older kiddos might be able to use. So Any other questions from the group before we go back to our families for a while and put all this to practice? Things you're thinking about, comments?
I do have maybe a topic. I'm just not sure exactly how to word the question, which is why I've kind of been silent.
Oh, no, all good.
It's my daughter. She's 8. At home, she is like, I don't know how to word. I am the boss, and I am outgoing and loud, and has no qualms about telling me her feelings and what to do and all of those things. At school or at the Montessori, she is 100% completely the opposite. And I will say that she has been diagnosed twice now with anxiety, with us trying to figure out what is going on. But I'm sorry, speaking of the devil, she's yelling for me. Yes, Mina. Hi. Is that all you want is hi? I love you too.
Oh, sweet. So you're wondering about why it's different, or how you can make it more congruent, or
yes, like how do I get that to move across into while she's there as well? Like I know I will say that previously we were in public school before coming to the Montessori, and it was an everyday battle. Seriously, stomach pains, crying, missing lots of school. I mean, it was to the point that I got a 504 plan or something like that because it was so bad. Yeah. Like she wouldn't even go. And I will say that since she has started, this is our first year, our first year here. My goodness, I cannot speak. And she has greatly improved. And I will tell you, there have been no mornings of crying. So thank you all.
Oh, great. It's a start, huh?
Yes, and it is. And she has really come out of her shell, including here at home. But it's just not consistent across the board. And I don't know how to encourage her. Because here, if I were to tickle her, she's like, no, stop that. I don't like it. Like that tone, and I know, and I quit, of course, but I can't, I don't know. She just doesn't stand up for herself as well outside of here. And how do I encourage that, but in a positive way?
Yeah. Does anyone want to take that? You want me to take it?
I just want to say real quick that Kat, she completely feels really comfortable with you. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why she's able to do
You've given her a place of love, right? That she can feel like she's her whole self at home. And I think, that's a good place to start. I'm so glad that you feel so comfortable at home. Does she see a therapist or anybody that she talks to that's kind of neutral?
Not on a regular basis. We are working on trying to get her in somewhere, because we just got this 2 weeks ago, but everywhere has a seriously long waiting list.
And we have, I don't know if you have our counseling resources from school, and we do partner with Centerpoint, and it's just virtual right now, but Dianya, which is the therapist that works with our teens and children, she has really great rapport with them, even virtually. So it might be an option, and it might help bridge the process at school too. But sometimes, children don't want to share all the reasons for things because they might feel like they're disappointing somebody. So talking to someone neutral might help that to normalize for them a little bit. So that might be an idea. I'll put that list in the chat as well if you haven't seen that yet. Has she ever given you any thoughts about why?
No, we try to talk about it. but it's I don't know if it's like an embarrassed thing because like she gets real red and just kind of shuts down.
Yeah. Which kind of gives us the understanding that we probably should not talk about it sometimes,
Right.
Yeah, and so then that's really hard, right? Because you're like, I want to, and I one of the things I love that Maria Montessori said is that we really have to trust our child, and we have to tell them that we do, and so maybe shifting it to like, I trust you. I know that you're going to become the best version of yourself, and you already are. And, if there's a reason that you don't want to be a certain way around other people, you're going to figure that out, but as your parents, we're going to keep giving you tools to figure that out. And so one of the tools, blah, 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 is that we're going to look at having somebody that's not your family talking with you that knows how to help you think about the why of things so that, you don't have to feel like you're different people with different people.
Feeling like you're different people with different people. That's really good verbiage. And yes, if you would please throw that into the chat,
Yes,
resource, I would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. So it gives you a couple of different options on there. I'll tell you one that's kind of neat is, Centerpoint is the one that will do the virtual here, but Opening Gates, I think they still do it, has equine therapy. And so, it's a lot for ADHD or neurodivergent populations, but it also just helps, like, they don't like ride horses. They have to figure out how to get the horse to do what they need them to do without like pulling and tugging on them. So it's a relationship building component of that. And it also helps to build self-esteem and that kind of thing. So it might be something that you might want to consider too.
Oh, that is really neat. I didn't even know that existed. Jeffersonville,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is right down the street. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Anybody have anything else before we stop the recording and go to practicing? We're so appreciative of everyone being on the call. Thanks, Michael and Renee, for your support on this too, and for each of you to come and help us be in community with each other. So we learned so much from our conversations from one another. Have a great night. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks so much.